So, what exactly is Django? Django is a web development framework for Python. So, it is for the Python language and it allows us to build websites, web projects with Python. Now, we still will use HTML, CSS, and JavaScript for the part our users see for the front end of websites, but for everything that happens on the server, so on the remote computer out there in the web, which handles the incoming requests and sends back the responses, for all of that, we use Django, or we can use Django, and in this course we will, to handle everything there and to run our entire business logic there with help of Django. But what exactly is a framework? A framework in the end is a module. It's a third-party library which you install on your system. And the idea is that it has a bunch of utility functionalities and methods you can use, and that it solves a lot of problems for you so that you don't have to solve them, like managing sessions and authentication and file uploads, parsing incoming requests and sending back responses, so that you as a developer don't have to focus on those nitty-gritty details, but that instead you can focus on what makes up your website, that you can focus on the core business logic, what earns you money, because you typically don't want to solve all those side details. You don't want to reinvent the wheel all the time, and you don't want to do the technical side of handling requests and working with the database and managing sessions. You want to instead use these tools to then do what your website is about. You want to decide which data to store and when data should be stored, but you don't want to implement it technically. That's why we use a framework. But it's a framework specifically and not just called a library, because it does not just give us all these tools to use, but it also gives us a clear guidance, a clear set of rules on how to use these tools. And that starts with setting up a Django project, as you will see later. We have a tool for that as well, and it will give us a project which has a certain structure that we should use for any kind of Django project. And whenever we then add a feature, like working with a database, storing data, we do this in a certain way. And this course will, of course, teach you all these ways of doing things. And there is a clear path when you use Django on how certain things have to be done. And that's a good thing, because that means that you don't have to think about how to best do something. You know how to do it because there is one clear path with Django, and then it's just up to you to decide which kind of data should be stored, when it should be stored, and so on. And that's why we use Django and what Django is. We use it because it takes a lot of work away from us and allows us to focus on our core business logic, and therefore it is the most popular web development framework for Python. Now, Django is built for Python 3.x, so for that latest version of Python, and it follows a batteries included approach, which basically means that it has a solution for everything. You don't need to install a ton of extra libraries and packages to then build a real project. Instead, Django covers all these typical problems which you face when building a website, and it has a solution built in for those problems. And in this course, we're going to see a lot of these typical problems and which solution Django then offers to us. And it still is extensible and customizable. I also want to emphasize this. Just because we have a clear set of rules and a clear path, and just because it has this batteries included approach, does not mean that you wouldn't be able to customize it and fine-tune it. You absolutely can, and we absolutely will in this course. You can still control everything. There is just a clear path on how to do something, but when you walk down that path, it's up to you how you want to walk it down, and you will have plenty of options on customizing everything, as you will see throughout the course. So it gives you the best of both worlds, a clear path and a clear set of rules, and still a lot of flexibility, which you of course need, because not every website is the same, not every web project is the same. Now, last but not least, I also want to emphasize that Django is not just some small framework for side projects, but that you can really use it to build websites of any size with it. No matter if that is a small side project or a large enterprise level application, you can build it with Django. And in this course, we're going to dive into all the core features you need to know to use Django. So that is Django, and that's why it's pretty awesome.